Alarm bells ring in the technologically advanced belly of the Hedwigan Church. Maxwellists, an offshoot of the legendary Church of the Broken God, slide on power armor and gather laser and plasma weaponry from their armory. On the outside, an otherworldly attack rages. Sarkist cultists, identifying themselves as Neo-Nälkic worshippers, have exited a series of black vans parked in the Reno desert, surrounding the building. Each one of them was packing enough Sarkic thaumaturgy to turn a whole town into flesh-worshipping mutant monsters. But that wasn't all they had. An 18-wheel big rig was parked amongst the vans. When the back was opened, an impossible catastrophe of flesh crawled out. A mountain of meat and mouths and tentacles. An unstoppable beast made out of 50 devoted worshippers of the Grand Karcist Ion and his teachings, specifically designed to lay waste to a heavily guarded Maxwellist base. Now would be the ultimate test of whether it could live up to expectations. Guards posted on the outside of the church, exhibiting only minor hidden mechanical advancements, concealed under their clothes, were quickly overwhelmed. Sarkic shock troops, covered in flesh tunics rich with archaic symbols, approached silently, making strange hand gestures and muttering incantations. The guards felt acidic burning sensations inside their bodies, as though their organs had suddenly developed lives and minds of their own, and resented the bestial burden of their greater bodies around them. Tentacles started emerging out of their flesh, piercing through their clothes. The guards screamed as they were taken, their new conglomerations of their sarkically awakened organs overriding any control they once had. Their bodies changed into fleshy abominations under the command of the men that warped them, and they slithered into the church they once guarded. Every Maxwellist that fell to the Sarkics became another one of their minions. The Mechanites needed to take control of the situation quickly, or they would be overwhelmed. On the inside, the Maxwellists marshaled their forces. They organized into heavily armed, heavily armored strike teams, groups of around 6, and spread out to lock down the halls. At the front of each team stood a high-ranking Mechanite, a paladin for the Broken God, wielding a 2-handed energy cannon attached to a power pack slung across his back. One of these warriors of Mechane was Ramirez, who led his team up from one of the many databanks inside the church. Maxwellists revere these kind of networks, this kind of data, as sacred, and it could not fall into the diseased hands of the Sarkicists. If they were able to extract any of this information, it could do untold damage to the Maxwellist cause. Ramirez heard an awful wet screech and saw a monster turning the corner. A red, raw abomination of rotten meat, a crawling cancer that had once been one of the guards. Its many eyes zeroed in on Ramirez and his team and made a screeching dash, reaching out with its tentacles and bone appendages. But Ramirez was unmoved. He leveled his energy cannon and gave it hell, sending a cleansing beam of white light into the heart of the monster, causing it to immediately burst into flames. Ramirez told his team to keep moving as the monster thrashed and died next to them. No time to waste. The team moved forward into the adjoining hall, weapons at the ready. As they encountered more screaming flesh beasts, they let loose, reducing them to blackened husks. One of the younger Maxwellists on the team, Julian, said, "Man, I expected these Sarkists to be way tougher. Maybe they're just a paper." He never got to finish that sentence. A huge tentacle burst through a nearby door and wrapped itself around Julian as he screamed in horror. The rest of the team, including Ramirez, opened fire on the tentacle, but it seemed unfazed. As Julian begged to be saved, the tentacle dragged him into the darkness, considered lost. But Ramirez wasn't having it. Lugging the energy cannon, he ran after his abducted teammate into the darkness of the destroyed door. The rest of the team, unquestioning, followed him. Little did they know, a trap was waiting for them on the other side. In their haste, some of the team stepped into the blood sigils that Sarkist sorcerers had painted on the ground like bear traps. The Maxwellists froze and screamed as their bodies shrank down and transformed into red meat cubes. Ramirez and a few others were lucky to survive that, but they weren't out of the woods. Sarkic sorcerers and flesh monsters were positioned around the room, running in from all angles. The Maxwellist strike team fell into a tight formation, back to back, and fired outwards as the creatures piled in. The energy cannon lasered through monster after monster, as Ramirez's reinforced armor deflected the lesser flesh curses of the Sarkic sorcerers, unleashing thaumaturgic attacks from a distance. But the remaining teammates on either side of him weren't so lucky. Their bodies started to twitch and contort, growing extra, almost insect-like limbs out of their bones, with long, grasping tendrils protruding from every inch of exposed skin. Suddenly, Ramirez had deadly enemies on all sides, and all he could do was run. Ramirez pushed through the crowd of horrors and made his way outside, hoping to radio for immediate backup from other Maxwellist contingents in the state of Nevada. But outside was no better. His brothers and sisters in tech were being slaughtered by their Sarkic invaders. With horror, he witnessed fellow worshippers that he'd come to know and love getting killed or transformed by these profane monsters. Some were being relentlessly attacked by human-sized flesh beasts and their many cruel appendages. Others were being transformed into these same mutant attack dogs by Sarkic practitioners. Others still, like poor Julian, were wrapped in the tentacles of a 50-foot-tall flesh monster, replete with nightmarish prehensile limbs, each likely capable of whipping clean through a building. But if Ramirez was going to die today, he would not die like a coward. He would die like a hero. With a roar equal parts fear, vengeance, and righteous fury, he turned his energy cannon towards the giant abomination and opened fire. It released a mighty beam of sustained killing light that he was sure would burn out the fuel cells on his weapon, but he was already as good as dead, so that did not matter now. He fired until the gun broke, then lowered it with horror to see that the flesh beast was entirely unaffected. Any burns it sustained on its blasphemous flesh instantly healed. The abomination raised a huge tentacle, ready to bring it down on Ramirez in a crushing blow, as though the Mechanite's death would be nothing more to this immense creature than swatting a bothersome fly. Ramirez closed his eyes and prayed to Mechane as the tentacle fell, but it never landed on him. Ramirez opened his eyes, surprised that he was still able to do so, and looked up. There he saw something incredible, something unbelievable. It was Optimus Prime. Yes, the Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, flying above him on jet thrusters, holding up the mighty tentacle. "Run! Get out of here!" Optimus said in the sonorous tone of his original voice actor, Peter Cullen. "You fought well, friend. I'll take it from here." Having been a kid in the 1980s, Ramirez had it hardwired into his brain not to second-guess the orders of Optimus Prime. While the other Sarkics stood in frozen astonishment at what was unfolding, Ramirez hopped to the nearest vehicle and hightailed it through the desert, kicking up dust trails behind him. Now it was just Optimus and the Sarkics. He pitched the tentacle to the side and backflipped down to the ground, assuming a fighting stance as his confused enemies closed ranks around him. If they had to slaughter the main character of a beloved multimedia franchise today to achieve their dark goals, that was a low they were willing to stoop to. "Listen closely, humans," Optimus said. "It is against my nature to harm you without cause, so I will give you one chance, only one, to stop fighting and leave this place. If you do, I'll let you go and we'll have no further issues. If you don't, I will show you no mercy. Think carefully. This will not be offered to you twice." There was a pause. Perhaps the Sarkics were thinking it over. Optimus spoke with such authority that everyone in attendance knew if the fight started, it would be to the death. The abomination chose for them, sending a barrage of tentacles at Optimus with deadly precision. But the Autobot was ready. He deftly slid to the side, avoiding the tentacles at the crucial moment before deploying a barrage of directed energy weaponry into the monster's wretched flesh. Optimus ran forward, each of his metal steps shaking the earth beneath him. The Sarkic sorcerers waved their hands and spoke their incantations, but it did no good. There was no flesh in Optimus Prime that their dark magic could manipulate. The powers that made them so devastating against the human Maxwellists were useless against him. Optimus deployed his shoulder-mounted plasma cannon, firing blasts of superheated semi-liquid matter that vaporized the Sarkic sorcerers on contact without so much as a scream. It brought Optimus no pleasure to execute these men who strayed from the path of righteousness, but this was the choice they made. As the sorcerers realized how hopeless the fight was and began to flee, the flesh monsters that had once been Maxwellists swarmed on Optimus, locking themselves in place with their tentacles and trying to pierce the titanium alloy armor plates with their stabbing appendages. Optimus wastes no time in grabbing the creatures and ripping them off of his body, squeezing each one to the death before casting them aside to rot in the Reno sun. It didn't take long for him to dispatch every single one of them, at no great risk to himself. The giant abomination, what the SCP Foundation would refer to as a SK Biotype 001 behemoth, would be a little more challenging. Optimus charged at the monster, dodging and jumping onto its many combat tentacles. He climbed up them like a meat staircase until he was perfectly positioned to leap into the air, suspended right above the monster, his shadow blotting out the sun. There, in the split second he had suspended in place, he activated the ultra-powerful ion blaster on his back and let loose, firing an energy beam down at the monster, cooking it right to the center, like the world's largest portion of roast beef. Was this just another increasingly craven crossover from SCP Explained? No, this was SCP-5984, a creation of the Maxwellist engineer Stanley Budinsky. This fascinating pop culture anomaly was the result of a series of bizarre compromises made by this particular offshoot of the Mechanists to create an unstoppable defender in their never-ending war against the forces of Sarkicism. Our tale begins in the Halcyon days of 2011, where the third movie in Michael Bay's live-action adaptation of the Transformers franchise, Transformers: Dark of the Moon, was about to hit theaters. As part of the movie's extensive marketing campaign, Paramount and Hasbro created a 6.5-meter metal statue of Optimus Prime, a statue that, shortly after the release of the movie, went mysteriously missing. At this point, the Foundation had no reason to get involved. As far as they knew, some Transformers superfan with a criminal streak just got a wonderful addition to their living room, but there was nothing anomalous afoot. That's where they were wrong. A group of devotees from the Church of Maxwellism had absconded with Optimus Prime, and they were about to give him an upgrade. They added, among other things, articulated tungsten alloy steel joints that allowed for a full range of motion, titanium alloyed armor over various parts of his body, allowing for comprehensive defense that makes most conventional arms ineffective against him. He also has functional laser and plasma weapons, including Optimus's iconic shoulder cannon and an ionic blaster on his back. And of course, they imbued Optimus with an Asimov-class artificial intelligence complete with full speech capabilities. And not just any speech capabilities. A voice chip designed to mimic voice actor Peter Cullen, who has played the character Optimus Prime since 1984. As a measure against Sarkic attacks on their forces and bases, SCP-5984 has been stupendously effective, with a 98.5% success rate. Despite the size and ostentatiousness of a fighting replica of the leader of the Autobots, he's also shown to be an effective tool in precise surgical defensive maneuvers on behalf of the Church. Much like his fictional counterpart, this Optimus shows a respect for human life and limits himself to precision strikes without the use of artillery when he's in an area where human casualties could be a risk. However, while this is all well and good, the Foundation has more concerns than just preserving life. There's also the matter of the veil to consider. And it probably goes without saying that witnessing a real-life Optimus Prime kicking the tar out of a 50-foot-tall flesh beast in the middle of a populated area might lead to a lot of civilians to reevaluate their ideas about consensus reality. That's why, in situations where SCP-5984 risks breaking the veil, the Foundation created a procedure known as Protocol Circuit Breaker. Under Circuit Breaker activated whenever there's an SCP-5984 incident in a highly populated area, the Foundation will block off all roads leading in and out of the area, then disable internet access in a 10-mile radius. Following that, they'll deploy Mobile Task Force Omicron 84, aka Power Beyond Imagination, equipped with electromagnetic pulsar-capable weaponry that is able to temporarily disable SCP-5984. However, if this doesn't work, they'll have the ultimate contingency plan, enforcing mass amnestic treatment for everyone within the quarantine zone, and sending in a non-nuclear electromagnetic pulse missile in to disable the anomaly, before taking it back to Armed Reliquary, and Containment Area 02. But even then, you can't keep a good Autobot down for long. And in the over 10 years since the anomaly was first activated, it has had its fair share of skirmishes with different assets from various Neo-Sarkic forces across the United States. With all this chaos caused by one anomaly, the Foundation was eager to meet its maker, Stanley Budinsky, a high-ranking engineer and Foundation person of interest in the Church of Maxwellism. Being interviewed by Foundation researcher Dr. Dennis Witwicka, Budinsky confessed that it was far more practical and resource-effective to retrofit the capabilities of SCP-5984 onto an extant metal body than make one themselves. As for why they chose Optimus Prime out of one of the many metal statues across the globe, Budinsky claimed that Maxwellists enjoyed and related to the Transformers franchise. In his eyes, the Mechanites and the Sarkicists were not unlike the Autobots and the Decepticons. One shall stand, one shall fall, both locked into an eternal combat. Dr. Witwitka couldn't help but ask, but why go all the way with the voice? Seems unnecessary, no? Budinsky simply laughed and said, wouldn't you, given the chance? Now go check out SCP-001, The Broken God Ouroboros Cycle, and SCP-001, Church of the Broken God Explained, for more.